Welcome to our online election board worker training for clerks and judges for the November 8th, 2022 general election. We are offering online training as an option for our experienced poll workers. If you are a new poll worker, you are welcome to do the training online, but we also recommend you taking training in person. This training will allow you to understand your roles as clerks and judges. Each election board worker will be issued an election board manual. There will also be a manual in the Blue Book. Please read it thoroughly prior to Election Day. If you receive your manual, please follow along as we will continually refer to it throughout the training. The manual is also available on our website under the Election Board Worker Information link. Election Board general information will be found on pages 1 to 4 of your manual. An election board consists of an inspector, clerks, and judges. Clerks and judges should be willing to serve and exchange jobs during the day. Basic requirements for poll workers are good eyesight, ability to sit from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., ability to follow instructions and write legibly, the ability to assist in setting up the polling area, including setting up the polling booths and the express vote. State law requires election board workers to attend training prior to each statewide election. This online election board worker training will count as your training. There's a quiz on our election board worker information page on our website. Once you take that quiz, you'll be credited with taking the training. Election board conduct. Refrain from excessive and loud visiting with each other. Treat all voters with courtesy. Avoid asking personal questions of a voter unless required as an election duty. TVs, radios, and newspapers are not allowed because of political advertisements. Do not engage in any political conversations while conducting the election. Do not smoke inside any polling place. Use designated exterior smoking areas. We have two types of election board workers. Appointed election board workers have been assigned to a specific precinct or polling place for a 2-year period. Reserve election board workers are substitute workers who have been called upon to take the place of an appointed worker who is unable to serve a specific election. Breaks and lunches. Breaks and lunches are allowed. The board should work together to make sure that there are 15-minute breaks in the morning and afternoon and also 30 minutes for lunch. The inspector is responsible for the payroll sheet. First thing on the morning of the election, each board worker should print his or her information on the payroll sheet and include an emergency contact name and phone number. Clerks and judges are paid $9 per hour and are also paid for training. If you're not working in your home precinct, it is important to request an early vote ballot. Applications are available on our website at lancaster.ne.gov/election. Emergency procedures are located on page 4 of the manual. For severe weather, follow the building's emergency procedures. Move to a place of shelter. Without jeopardizing the safety of workers or voters, the board should take ballots, ballot box, the list of voters, and the sign-in register with them. Election Day information is located on pages 7 and 8 of the manual. Election board workers should report to their polling location at 7 a.m. to assist in setting up for the day. The polls are open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. No voter may cast a ballot prior to 8 a.m., and anyone who is in line at 8 p.m. must be allowed to vote. If a line forms, please check to see if all voters are in the correct location. If there is more than one precinct loaded at the polling location, please make sure they are in the right line. Electioneering. There is no type of electioneering for any candidate or measure that is currently on the ballot for the current election within 200 feet of any polling location unless it is on private property not controlled by the ownership of the building in which the polling place is located. All cell phones should be silenced but are not required to be turned off. A voter may take a picture or a selfie of them casting or marking their own ballot. Any voter may challenge another voter's eligibility to vote. This does not happen very often, but a challenge oath is located in the supply box. It is printed on goldenrod colored paper. You may answer questions from the media regarding the number of people who have voted. If they persist in asking additional questions, please have them call the election office at 402-441-7311. Election day visitors will include district inspectors, express vote technicians, observers or poll watchers, and exit pollers. We have an election board management system which allows our office to communicate with our election board workers through emails and texts. If you have an email address, please make sure our office has it. The express vote. This machine assists voters with disabilities to vote in private and unassisted. Ballots have a coding track, those little black boxes, on all four sides of the ballot. Voters will mark their ballots with black ink. You will also notice that the ovals are smaller than they used to be. Judges will initial the ballots in red ink, and please keep the initials within the initials box. Manual pages 9 through 15 outline the duties of the inspector. Since this is training for clerks and judges, we will not discuss this with the clerks and judges. Manual pages 16 through 20 outline general instructions for clerks. Clerk number 1 is responsible for the list of registered voters, which is located in the Blue Book. The Blue Book is a 3-ring binder which will be located in the ballot box when the inspector picks up supplies. Contents of the Blue Book include a signature guide, which can be used as a guide for a voter with vision issues to sign on the correct line in the sign-in register. The list of registered voters is also located in the Blue Book. The voters' names are listed in alphabetical order. The number the voter appears in the list of the voters is in the first column. The clerk will also print the line number from the sign-in register in the first column. The second column lists the voter's date of birth. The third column lists the voter's name and address. If there is a check mark to the right of the voter's name under the ID required heading, this only means that that voter needs to provide proper ID in order to vote. There are only a handful of voters in the county required to do this. Instructions for this are on page 17 of the manual. The fourth column lists the precinct number and ballot style. Most precincts only have one ballot style, but there are several precincts that have more than one. This is important to make sure that the voter is given the correct ballot for this election. The fifth column is where the clerk will print the voter's name once the clerk has verified all the information is correct in the third column. If the word inactive is listed in the fifth column, it means that the election office has received some type of information that the voter may no longer live at that address. Please double check that that voter does live at the address before allowing the voter to vote. If the voter has a new address, the voter needs to vote in the precinct of his or her new address. If the word absentee is listed in the fifth column, it means that the voter has been issued an early vote ballot. If the voter still wants to vote, the voter must vote a provisional ballot. The sixth column has a barcode which represents the voter's registration number, and it is used after the election by the election office staff. The correction and notations page is on yellow paper. This is the page where the election board can place any corrections for the election staff to follow up after the election. The provisional ballot page is on pink paper. Any voter who votes provisionally must be listed on this page. The payroll form is found in the blue book as well, and it is on green paper. The inspector is required to make sure that this is completed correctly. The ballot log card is also located in the blue book. The Election Day Poll Worker Hotline is 402-441-9090. Election board workers may use this phone number to reach the election staff to assist them if they have any questions. There is also an abbreviated instruction sheet for election board workers that outlines the responsibility of each worker. There's an instruction sheet which will assist the election board on how to access the voter check website information if you have access to a smartphone, tablet, or laptop at your polling location. This pink sheet is an outline for polling place accessibility guidelines for election board workers to review and make sure that their polling site meets all of the requirements. We also have an election board manual located in your blue book. An individual precinct map is located in your blue book. A listing of possible emergencies and how to handle them is also located in the blue book. Clerk number 1 duties are outlined on pages 15 to 18 in the manual. Clerk number 1 checks the voter in. Clerk 1 asks the voter for his or her name and then locates the voter in the list of the registered voters. Clerk number 1 then asks the voter for their address and verifies that it matches that address listed in the list of voters. Clerk 1 checks the ballot style if you're in a precinct that has more than one ballot style. Clerk number 1 then tells clerk number 2 the voter's name and the ballot style if you're in one of those precincts that has more than one ballot style. Clerk 1 prints the voter's name legibly in the 5th column under the printed name of voter. And then Clerk 1 prints the line number from the sign-in register where the voter signed their name. Important to remember, the clerk must print the voter's name under the printed name of voter column after verifying all the information is correct. When the inspector picks up supplies, they will be provided with a list of voters who have voted early after the poll books were printed. One poll worker should print the word absentee in the list of voters next to those voters' names. This is a listing of the precincts that have more than one ballot style for the general election. If a voter notes an error in the list of voters, such as transposing of letters in the name or that there is someone in the list of voter who no longer lives in Lancaster County, this should be listed on the corrections and notations page. It is on yellow paper. Clerk number 2 duties. Clerk number 2 is responsible for the sign-in register. The sign-in register will be found in the ballot box along with the ballots that the inspector has picked up. This is a picture of what the inside of the sign-in register looks like. Once clerk number 1 has verified the voter's name, address, and if they're in a precinct with more than one ballot style, the ballot style, they provide that information to clerk number 2, and clerk number 2 prints the voter's name under the clerk prints voter's name in the sign-in register, and then places a check mark under the appropriate columns on the left side of the sign-in sheet. Then clerk number 2 turns the sign-in book around and the voter signs their name and prints their address. Instructions for judges can be found on page 21 through 23 in the manual. Judge number 1 is responsible for issuing the ballots. Remember, we are no longer marking ballots with pencils. They are required to use a black ink pen. Judges will initial the ballot with a red ink pen, and please keep those initials within the initials box. 2 judges of different political parties must initial the ballot to make the ballot official. If you are serving in one of those precincts with more than one ballot style, the ballot style number will be indicated on the lower left-hand corner of the ballot. This is a sample of a ballot for this elections. It'll be a 2-sided ballot. Remember, voters will be marking the ballot with black ink since we are no longer using pencil. The judge should give the following instructions to the voter. That's located on page 22 of the manual. Blacken the ovals of your choice completely. Use only the black pen provided. Do not cross out. If you change your mind, ask for a new ballot. Inform the voter that the ballot has 2 sets of initials, making it official. When finished voting, bring the ballot back in the ballot sleeve so that both sets of initials are shown. Remind them that there are 2 sides to the ballot. They need to make their selections on both sides of the ballot. This is a sample of the ballot sleeves. The judge's initials must appear in the cutout at the bottom of the ballot sleeve. The voter will then go to the appropriate polling booth or the express vote to cast his or her ballot. Judge number 2 is responsible for initialing the ballots and processing the voted ballots. When the voter brings the ballot back to judge number 2 in the ballot sleeve, judge number 2 should look for the initials in the opening at the bottom of the ballot sleeve, verify that the ballot is official. That means it has 2 sets of initials at the bottom. If that is the case, then the ballot is deposited in the ballot box by the judge. The voter is then offered an I voted today sticker and is thanked for voting. The I voted today stickers will be in with the supplies in your supply box. If the voter makes an error on the ballot, the voter may request a new ballot. The ballot with the error on it must be spoiled by the voter by writing void on the ballot, and the voter is then issued a new official ballot. The ballot marked void is placed in the spoiled ballot envelope. If the ballot is returned to judge number 2 and there are no initials or only 1 set of initials, then the ballot must be rejected and the voter issued a new ballot. The voter should write rejected on the ballot and then issued a new ballot. The rejected ballot is placed into the rejected ballot envelope. Provisional voting procedures are located on pages 24 to 26 of the manual. Provisional voting allows a voter to cast a ballot if their eligibility is in question or otherwise would not be permitted to vote at their polling place. The content of the provisional ballot is no different than a regular ballot, but is cast provisionally until the election officials can verify the voter's eligibility to vote and are voting at the correct precinct in that election. Reasons the voter will need to vote provisionally are: 1, the voter is moved to a new street address, even if it is in the same precinct. 2, the voter is flagged absentee in the list of voters, but is decided to vote at their regular polling place on election day. And 3, the voter is flagged ID required in the list of registered voters, but does not provide the appropriate identification. Please see page 17 of the manual about the ID required requirements. Each precinct will have approximately 50 provisional ballot packets. In the front of each provisional ballot packet, there will be a provisional ballot voting checklist with step-by-step instructions. Step 1, verify that the voter is in the correct precinct and polling location. This can be done using the maps provided in the Blue Book and the supply box. You could also use the voter check website. Those instructions are in your Blue Book. Or you can also call the Election Day Poll Worker Hotline, 402-441-9090, to make sure that you have the voter's name, date of birth, and new address. The election board worker and voter must complete all 4 sections of the provisional ballot application form. Section 1, the poll worker is going to complete Section 1. This includes the location of the polling location where the voter is voting, plus the reason the voter is voting provisionally. Section 2, the voter completes this section with their new address. This section is a Nebraska voter registration application. Section 3, the voter selects a 5-digit PIN number, personal identification number, which will allow the voter to find out after the election whether their ballot was counted or not, and the reason the ballot was not counted. Section 4, the voter signs the form. The provisional ballot envelope. The voter completes and signs Section 1. The election board completes Section 2. Please remember, if the voter does not sign this form, this oath, the ballot will not be counted. Clerk will print the voter's name and address and line number from the sign-in register on the provisional voter page in the Blue Book. Clerk will print the voter's name in the sign-in register along with the appropriate check marks, including a check mark under the provisional ballot column. Then the voter will sign their name and print their address. Voters needing assistance information may be found on page 27 of your manual. If a family member or friend assists the voter, the person assisting the voter must sign the voter assistance oath in the front of the sign-in register. Express vote information is found on page 27 of the manual. The state of Nebraska has purchased machines that assist voters with disabilities to be able to vote in private and unassisted. The express vote will be delivered with the inspector when they pick up their supplies on the day prior to the election day. There's a separate video available on our website explaining how to operate the express vote. This machine replaces the old Automark, which was heavy and cumbersome to set up, operate, and move. In addition, an express vote technician will visit your polling site first thing in the morning to make sure you have it set up correctly. There will be a 2-page instruction sheet on how to turn on and simply set up the express vote. Both are located in your supply box, and there will also be one with the express vote. Closing of the polling place. Information is located on page 29 of your manual. Make sure to sign all forms. Place all unused ballots in the clear plastic bag with the yellow unused ballot insert. Make sure your rejected ballots are sealed in the rejected ballot envelope. Make sure any unused but initial ballots or any spoiled ballots are sealed in the spoiled ballot envelope. Include everything listed on the sign-in register envelope has been placed in that envelope. Put all supplies neatly back into the supply box and make sure to clean up the voting area. Voted ballot procedures information can be found on page 31 of the manual. At the end of the day, 2 poll workers of different party affiliations will open the ballot box and count the number of ballots, including the express vote ballots, cast plus the number of provisional ballots in place in Section 1. Place the number, that number should match the number of voters that you have in the sign-in register. Once this step is completed, then place the ballots, including provisional ballots and express vote ballots, in the ballot transport box along with the ballot log card. In the supply box, you will find seals for the transport ballot box. You will find on the ballot transport box where the seals should be applied. In the supply box, you will find name tags with a lanyard. Please place your name on the name tag. Thank you for your help, and this completes the training for the clerks and judges.